It was 3:27 in the morning when Steph Curry was awakened by a sound that would change his family forever. The fragile and desperate cry of a newborn coming from outside his house in Atherton, California. Initially, he thought it was part of a confused dream. But the sound persisted, cutting through the silence of the dawn like a cry for help that could not be ignored. When he finally opened the front door, he found something that would challenge everything he believed about: destiny, responsibility, and the true meaning of family. To understand how this moment transformed not just one night, but an entire perspective on purpose and compassion, we need to go back a few hours earlier, when a young mother made the most difficult decision of her life. You can realize that some of life's most transformative moments arrive disguised as unexpected crises, testing not only our ability to react, but revealing who we really are when no one is watching. The previous afternoon had been typical at the Curry house. Steph had returned from an extended Warriors practice, still feeling the fatigue in his muscles after 2 hours of intense physical preparation. Isha was in the kitchen, organizing dinner preparations while Cannon and Ryan did homework at the dining room table, their voices occasionally rising in typical sibling discussions. "Dad's home!" Ryan shouted when he heard the garage close, immediately abandoning his books to run and hug Steph at the entrance. It was the kind of comforting routine that had become precious to Steph. Simple moments of family life that contrasted with the intensity of public spotlights. After dinner, homework help, and bedtime stories, the house had finally quieted down around 10 o'clock at night. But 15 kilometers away, in a small apartment in East Palo Alto, a 19-year-old named Ashley Martinez was facing the most difficult night of her life. Ashley had given birth just 2 days before, alone in the bathroom of a temporary shelter, with no family to support her and no resources to raise a child. The eviction notice had arrived the previous morning. 24 hours to leave, nowhere to go, no money in the bank, no job prospects. How is it possible that two such different realities can exist in the same city, separated by only a few kilometers but worlds apart in terms of opportunities? Ashley discovered this cruel irony while holding her newborn daughter, knowing that the love she felt would not be enough to guarantee a dignified future. For weeks, as the pregnancy progressed, Ashley had observed different families in Atherton through social media, not out of obsession or envy, but driven by maternal desperation that forced her to consider the unthinkable. Among all the families she researched, one stood out: the Currys. "They are different," Ashley whispered to her daughter in the fateful dawn, watching the baby sleep peacefully in her arms. "I saw all the interviews, all the videos. They talk about family in a way that makes me believe you would be loved." Naturally, this leads us to a devastating truth about maternal love: that sometimes loving someone means being willing to give up everything, including your own happiness, to ensure that person has the opportunities you never had. Ashley's decision was not impulsive. It was the result of days of agony, careful research, and a painful understanding of her own limitations. She had watched old interviews of Steph, talking about family values, had seen Isha interacting with the children in home videos, had studied the way they spoke about responsibility and compassion. "If I can't give you the world," Ashley said, kissing her daughter's forehead, "at least I can give you the chance to have parents who can." In the dawn of that Saturday, Ashley walked the 4 miles to Atherton carrying a basket borrowed from the shelter, her daughter wrapped in a pink blanket that had been donated by a charity organization. Each step was a struggle against her maternal instincts, each meter separating her from her own child. What is most impressive is how certain decisions can simultaneously be the most painful and the most loving that a person can make. Ashley was literally walking away from her own heart to give it a better chance to beat. Arriving at the Curry Street at 2:30 in the morning, Ashley spent almost an hour just looking at the house, fighting against the urge to give up and go home with her daughter. But every time she thought about giving up, she remembered the eviction, the lack of prospects, the brutal reality of not being able to provide adequate medical care. "Forgive me, my baby," Ashley whispered, carefully placing the basket on the Curry's porch. "I hope one day you understand that this is not abandonment. It's love in its purest form." She rang the doorbell once, briefly, and ran to hide behind a nearby tree, wanting to make sure someone would find her daughter quickly. She needed to see with her own eyes that the child would be discovered and taken inside safely. How many times in life are we forced to make decisions that go against all our instincts, but we know deep in our souls that they are the right choices? Ashley was living exactly that, watching from afar as her decision became irreversible. When Steph finally opened the door 20 minutes later, Ashley saw the expression of shock and confusion on his face, quickly followed by Isha appearing behind him. She saw Isha pick up the child instinctively, with that naturalness of an experienced mother, saw Steph looking around searching for explanations. It was only when she saw Isha take her daughter inside the house, safe and protected, that Ashley allowed the tears to flow freely. She had succeeded. Her daughter was now in the hands of people who had not only resources, but also the heart to love her properly. Some of life's most precious gifts come wrapped in circumstances that test our ability to understand that true love sometimes requires sacrifices that go beyond our rational understanding. And on that cold dawn, two families were about to discover that miracles can be born from the most unlikely moments of human life. Ashley walked back to the shelter, knowing that she had changed not only her daughter's destiny, but also that she had planted a seed of transformation in a family that had no idea how their lives were about to be redefined by an act of maternal love in its purest form. While Isha instinctively picked up the baby in her arms, moved by maternal reflexes that transcend rational thought, Steph noticed a white envelope carefully attached to the wicker basket. What was written on that paper would not only explain how a child had appeared on their porch, but would reveal a profound truth about responsibility, influence, and the transformative power of living genuine values before the world. You can realize that some of life's most impactful revelations come handwritten, in simple words that carry the weight of unimaginable decisions and unconditional love. "Steph, there's an envelope here," Isha whispered, gently rocking the baby, who had stopped crying as soon as she felt the warmth of caring arms. Even in the shock of the situation, her maternal instincts had taken control, checking if the child was hurt, if she was breathing normally, if she needed immediate care. Steph took the envelope with trembling hands, his name, written in careful but clearly nervous handwriting. Mr. and Mrs. Curry was written on the front, as if whoever wrote it had practiced several times before achieving the final version. "Let's go inside first," Steph said, quickly looking around to make sure there was no one else nearby. "We need to understand what's happening." In the safety of the living room, with Isha sitting on the sofa, gently cradling the child, Steph carefully opened the envelope. His hands trembled slightly when he unfolded 2 pages of plain paper, covered with handwriting that mixed determination and desperation. How is it possible that words written by a stranger can hit directly at the center of who we are as people and as a family? Steph was about to find out. "Mr. and Mrs. Curry," the letter began, My name is Ashley Martinez. I am 19 years old, and I just gave birth to this girl alone, just 2 days ago. I know what I'm doing may seem terrible, but I hope that when you finish reading this, you'll understand that this is the most loving decision I've ever made in my life." Steph paused, looking at Isha, who was listening with tears beginning to form in her eyes. The reality of the situation was becoming clearer and more moving with each word. "I have no family. My parents died when I was 15, and since then I've been living in shelters. I was evicted yesterday from the last place I was staying. I have no job, no money, no way to give my daughter even the basics she deserves." "My God," Isha murmured, looking at the baby in her arms with even greater tenderness. "This girl, she's alone in the world." "I chose you not because you're famous or rich," the letter continued, "but because I spent weeks watching interviews, family videos, reading about how you talk about values and raising children. In every interview, I see how you look at each other when you talk about family, how you talk about responsibility and compassion. I saw Steph saying in an interview that being a father is not about giving everything to your children, but about teaching them to value what really matters. What is most impressive is how our public words can take on a life of their own, touching hearts of people we never imagined were listening, and how our authenticity can become hope for someone in despair." Steph had to stop reading for a moment, moved to realize that his words had traveled far beyond microphones and cameras, reaching a young mother in crisis who found in them reason to believe. I also saw a video of Isha talking about how every child deserves to feel loved and protected, regardless of how they arrive in a family. She said that family is not just blood. It's a daily choice to love unconditionally. Those words gave me courage for this decision. "I said that in a talk about adoption last year," Isha whispered, tears now flowing freely down her face. "I never imagined someone would use those words for a decision as difficult as this. I'm not abandoning my daughter. I'm giving her the chance to have the family I never had, the kind of parents I would have liked to have been if I could have. If you can't take care of her, please take her to a good family. I only ask that one day, when she grows up, you tell her that she was loved from the first second of life." Naturally, this leads us to a devastating truth about parental love. That sometimes the greatest proof of love is recognizing our own limitations and having the courage to act in our child's best interest, even if it means breaking our own heart. "Her name is Hope," the letter revealed, "because even in my most desperate situation, she represents hope. Hope that good people still exist. Hope that she will have opportunities I never had. Hope that my decision today will be the right thing when she looks back years in the future. Thank you for being the kind of people who give hope to the world. Thank you for showing that solid family still exists. And thank you for considering giving hope what I cannot, a future full of love and possibilities." The letter ended simply, "With all my love and gratitude, Ashley Martinez." Steph finished reading in absolute silence, the weight of moral responsibility falling on his shoulders like an emotional avalanche. Someone had chosen his family based not on fame or money, but on character observed from a distance. How many times in life do we discover that our influence goes far beyond what we imagine, touching lives in ways we'll never know completely? Steph and Isha were facing this realization in a more tangible way than they ever expected. "She studied us," Steph said finally, his voice choked. "She really paid attention to who we are as people, not as celebrities." "And now," Isha replied, looking at Hope sleeping peacefully in her arms, We have a responsibility that goes far beyond anything we've ever faced. This girl is here because someone believed we would be capable of loving her properly. Some of life's greatest gifts arrive, wrapped in responsibilities that test not only our practical capacity, but our moral integrity. And on that silent dawn, Steph and Isha discovered that their next decisions would define not only Hope's future, but who they really were when faced with the opportunity to transform words about compassion into concrete actions of unconditional love. In the following 48 hours, the Curry house transformed into a center of intense activity as they navigated legal, moral, and emotional issues they never imagined facing, discovering that some of life's most important decisions arrive disguised as unexpected crises that test not only our ability to react, but reveal the true content of our character when no one is watching. You can realize that there is a profound difference between talking about values and living those values when they require real sacrifices, permanent changes, and responsibilities that go far beyond our comfort zone. Steph's first call was to Marcus Thompson, the family lawyer, at 6 in the morning that Saturday. "Marcus, I know it's early, but I have a delicate situation. I need urgent legal guidance." "Steph, is everything okay? Did something happen?" Marcus responded, immediately alert upon hearing the tension in Steph's voice. "A baby was left at our door this morning. We have a letter explaining the situation, but I need to know what our legal obligations are." There was silence on the other end of the line. Before Marcus replied, "You need to contact social services immediately. This is child abandonment, and there are specific protocols that must be followed." During the next few hours, the house filled with people, social workers, representatives from the Department of Children and Family Services, and various officials trying to understand how such a delicate situation had ended up in the hands of a high-visibility family. How is it possible that bureaucratic procedures can feel so cold and inhuman when a real human life is at the center of the issue? Steph and Isha were discovering this frustration while trying to explain that they weren't trying to circumvent the system, but genuinely wanted to help. "Mr. and Mrs. Curry," explained Sarah Williams, the social worker responsible for the case. "We understand your intentions are good, but there is an established process for abandonment situations. The baby needs to undergo complete medical evaluation, be placed in a licensed, temporary home while we try to locate the biological mother." "But she's fine right here," Isha protested gently, still holding Hope, who had spent the last 36 hours alternating between her arms and Steph's, as if she had always belonged there. "She's feeding well, sleeping peacefully. Why traumatize her by changing environments?" "Those are the rules," Sarah replied, with that professional patience that barely managed to hide her own frustration with the system. "Even if you want to start an adoption process, there's a waiting list, background investigations, home visits. What is most impressive is how systems created to protect children can sometimes become obstacles for children to find loving homes, especially when bureaucracies cannot quickly adapt to complex human situations." It was at this moment that Cannon and Ryan, who had been kept in the dark about the details of the situation, came down for breakfast and saw a house full of official strangers and a baby in their mother's arms. "Mom, whose baby is that?" Ryan asked with the direct curiosity of an 8-year-old child. "It's Hope," Isha replied simply. "She needs a family to take care of her." "Is she going to live here?" Cannon asked, already approaching to get a better look at the girl who slept peacefully despite all the commotion around her. "We're talking about it," Steph said, kneeling to be at eye level with his sons. "It would be a very important decision for our whole family." "What do you think?" Cannon's response was immediate. She's small. She needs care. We know how to take care of babies. Ryan nodded vigorously. And Mom always says that family is about loving people who need love. Naturally, this leads us to a truth about childlike wisdom, that children can often go straight to the heart of complex moral issues, cutting through adult complications to arrive at what really matters. The words of their own children hit Steph and Isha with unexpected emotional force. Here were 8 and 10-year-old children demonstrating an intuitive understanding of compassion that adults struggled to navigate through regulations and protocols. Mr. and Mrs. Curry, Sarah interrupted gently. I understand this is emotional, but we need to follow the process. I'm going to need to take the baby to a licensed temporary home within the next 2 hours. It was at this moment that something clicked for Steph. Looking at Hope in Isha's arms, seeing the natural way she nestled against his wife's chest, observing how Cannon and Ryan were already talking about our little sister, he realized that the decision had already been made. Not rationally, but emotionally, at the deepest level of who they were as a family. Sarah, Steph said, his voice carrying a determination that surprised even himself. We want to adopt her. Officially, legally, permanently. We want to start the process today. Steph, Isha whispered, looking at him with a mixture of surprise and relief. They had talked about the possibility during the night, but hearing the words spoken aloud made everything real. I know there are processes, investigations, waiting time, Steph continued, but we want to be her family. She doesn't need a temporary home. She already has a home. Here, with us. How many times in life do we need to make decisions that change everything before we have time to fully analyze the consequences? Steph and Isha were doing exactly that, choosing with their hearts first and trusting that reason would find a way to follow. Sarah looked around the room, at Isha holding Hope with natural maternal tenderness, at Steph radiating protective determination, at Cannon and Ryan clearly ready to accept a new sister, at a house that emanated stability and love. Well, Sarah said finally, this definitely isn't standard procedure, but given that you have resources for adequate care, a stable home and… She paused, looking at the way the whole family had instinctively organized around Hope. And it's obvious she's already been accepted by everyone here. We can speed up some things. Some of life's most profound transformations happen in moments that last only seconds, but whose effects extend throughout eternity. And on that Saturday morning, the Curry family made a decision that would not only change their own lives, but prove that the words they had said publicly about compassion and responsibility were not just rhetoric, but principles they were willing to completely restructure their existence for. Hope slept peacefully during the entire conversation, as if she instinctively knew she was exactly where she should be, in the arms of a family that had chosen to transform a moment of crisis into a miracle of unconditional love. 6 months after the adoption process had been officially finalized, the Curry family had not only grown from 5 to 6 people, but everyone had discovered profound truths about destiny, purpose, and the transformative capacity of love when put into practical action. What began as an emergency decision on a cold dawn had become the foundation of changes that would extend far beyond a single family. You can realize that some miracles don't happen instantly and dramatically, but unfold slowly through daily choices of love, creating waves of transformation that touch lives in unimaginable ways. The reunion with Ashley Martinez happened 3 months after Hope had been officially adopted. Social investigators had located her at the shelter in East Palo Alto, where she had remained since that fateful night, struggling against depression and questioning daily whether she had made the right decision. "Ashley," Steph said when they met for the first time in the social worker's office, "we want you to know that Hope is happy, healthy, and that you made the most courageous and loving decision we've ever seen anyone make." Ashley, now 20 years old, but appearing to have lived much more than that, looked through the glass window at Hope playing in Isha's lap in the waiting room. Is she really okay? Really okay?" "She's more than okay," Isha replied softly. "She's loved. By all of us. And we want you to know that there will always be a place for you in our family, if you want." How is it possible that simple words can begin to heal wounds that seemed incurable? Ashley felt, for the first time in months, that maybe her decision really had been the right thing. What followed was not an instant fairy tale, but a gradual and careful process of building trust and relationship. Steph and Isha didn't try to replace the biological bond between Ashley and Hope, but created space for a unique family dynamic where love and gratitude coexisted with respect for origins. "We don't want Hope to grow up without knowing you," Steph explained during one of Ashley's first visits to the house. "We want her to understand the courage you had, the love you demonstrated, and that you will always be part of her story." Ashley, initially hesitant and insecure about her place in this new configuration, gradually began to find peace with her decision as she saw Hope flourishing in a stable environment, surrounded by siblings who adored her, and parents who had not only financial resources, but emotional ones to give her every possible opportunity. Naturally, this leads us to a truth about different types of love. That Ashley's maternal love had been demonstrated through renunciation, while Isha's maternal love manifested through daily care, and both were equally valid, necessary, and precious. Inspired by the experience, Steph and Isha established the Hope Foundation, an organization dedicated to supporting young mothers in crisis situations, offering not only financial assistance, but educational resources, counseling, and alternatives to the despair that Ashley had experienced. "We want to make sure that other young women like Ashley have options," Isha explained during the Foundation's launch. "We want them to know they're not alone, and that there are ways to find hope even in the darkest moments." Ashley became the Foundation's first beneficiary, receiving a full scholarship to study social work at a local university. "I want to help other girls who go through what I went through," she said. "I want them to know that sometimes the end of one dream can be the beginning of something even better." What is most impressive is how a decision made in desperation can transform into a life purpose that impacts hundreds of other people facing similar situations. Hope's first birthday became a unique celebration, not just of 1 year of life, but of 1 year of multiplied love, redefined family, and renewed purpose for everyone involved. "Today we complete 1 year since the night that changed our lives," Steph said during the party, looking around the room full of family, friends, and Hope Foundation representatives. "But what we learned is that this change didn't stop. It continues to spread." Ashley was there, not as a visitor, but as part of the extended family. She had become Aunt Ashley to Cannon and Ryan, and to Hope, she would always be the brave woman who gave me the best family in the world, as Isha had begun teaching the girl from an early age. During his speech, Steph revealed that Ashley had helped more than 50 young mothers through the Hope Foundation in the first year, proving that her experience had transformed into wisdom that saved lives. "Ashley didn't just give us hope," Steph said. "She taught us that sometimes the greatest acts of love require the greatest sacrifices, and that family can be created through choice, as much as through blood. How many times in life does one person's desperate decision become the blessing that completely redefines another family's life purpose? Ashley had discovered that her darkest moment had planted seeds of light that continued growing. 2 years after that fateful dawn, Hope was taking her first steps in the Curry house backyard, watched not only by Steph, Isha, Cannon, and Ryan, but also by Ashley, who had become an integral part of the family in a way no one could have predicted. "Look at that," Ashley whispered, tears of joy running down her face. "She's walking toward the future I always dreamed of for her." "And you," Isha replied, putting her arm around Ashley, "you're walking toward the future you deserve to have too." Ashley's original letter had been framed and placed in Hope's room, not as a reminder of abandonment, but as a symbol of maternal love in its purest form. A love willing to break its own heart, to ensure the loved one has the best possible opportunities. Some of life's greatest miracles arrive disguised as crises that test our capacity to transform words into actions and values into real changes. And on that dawn 3 years before, when a cry cut through the silence of Atherton, no one could have imagined that that sound was not just a baby asking for help, but the universe orchestrating an encounter between people who needed each other to discover who they really were when faced with the opportunity to love without limits. Hope grew up knowing she was loved twice. Once by someone brave enough to give up everything for her, and once by a family willing to completely restructure their lives to receive her, proving that some gifts arrive wrapped in impossible circumstances, but carry within them the power to transform all the lives they touch